Star Trek had been reinvigorated with a trio of successful big screen movies that reimagined the original 60s TV show. And then in 2017, a new Star Trek series premiered 12 years after the last series ended. A series that would be both very familiar in some ways and completely unrecognisable in others. It was a voyage of discovery, set on a ship called Discovery, not Voyager. Oh, and the show is called Star Trek Discovery. Between 2005 and 2017, there were no new Star Trek episodes being produced or broadcast on television. During that period, TV had changed from being something that you would watch as it was broadcast to something that you could watch when and where you wanted. CBS was the keeper of the television rights to Star Trek, a task it interpreted as, Star Trek? Never heard of it. Streaming services were the way of the future and would eventually supplant broadcast television as the way you watched a TV show. Remember when you missed a show and the VCR chewed the cassette, or the show was preempted by some trivial shit like a war? Streaming was seen as the way of the future and could be a place where a studio could offer its own content without having to share money with a middleman like cable companies or other streaming services like Netflix. Netflix, of course, not only proved that the streaming model could work and work well, but also provided a home for Star Trek series during the wilderness years, where even shows like Voyager and Enterprise found an appreciative new audience. If you'd have told that to 1990 Stam Fine that people were enjoying Voyager 20 years later, you would have seen one hell of a Mountain Dew spit take. Discovery was created by Brian Fuller and Alex Kurtzman and made by dozens of talented actors and technicians, as well as dozens of people with producer credits, some with Trek experience and others less so. Set roughly 100 years after the adventures of Star Trek Enterprise and approximately 10 years before the original series, and set in the same universe, Discovery stars Sonequa Martin Green as Michael Burnham, a human whose parents were killed by Klingons, but raised by her adopted Vulcan parents, who happen to be Sarek and Amanda. So yeah, Spock is her adopted brother, but not her biological brother, a loophole that would not have deterred the creators of certain types of fan fiction.
By all indications, nothing intelligent.
Michael Burnham starts off as first officer to Captain Giorgio.
Commander Burnham, you have endangered your vessel and your shipmates. You have attacked a superior officer. You violated the chain of command. You are relieved of duty.
But sorta starts a war with the Klingons. Burnham is drummed out of Starfleet for mutiny. Oh, and, the death of most of her crewmates and her captain, and sentenced to life imprisonment. But it would be a very short series if that wasn't waved away after a few episodes. Spoilers, it's waved away after a few episodes. Burnham is brilliant, able to combine a logical upbringing with a human instinct, which is a way of saying she almost always has the answers. Michael starts off the series with the emotional control of a Vulcan, but quickly descends into displaying human emotions, like a common Earthling.
The one thing that I witnessed about my mother, over and over, was her relentless pursuit of facts.
Sonequa Martin Green does excellent work on the show, and that's a show full of excellent acting work. Burnham is offered a chance to join the crew of the Discovery as a lowly grunt engineer by Captain Gabriel Lorca, who's got some secrets and an agenda of his own.
My ship. My way.
Already you're thinking to yourself, that doesn't sound like the Star Trek I know. Jason Isaacs is supposed to be a dangerous captain, sort of the opposite of Captain Giorgio, who is more consensus-driven. Let's not leap ahead too much, but the captain of the Discovery is not the focus of this series. As we'll see, there are more captains in this show than a captain's convention held on a cruise ship that's crewed only by people with the rank of captain, which I'm told is not a thing mainly because such ships always end up going around in circles because nobody can agree on a course. There are some other characters, and after a journalist made a Freedom of Information request, we are compelled to list them. Firstly, there's Cadet Tilly, Burnham's chatty roommate with a tendency to overshare. Tilly is there to be the enthusiastic character who's the one to be awestruck.
You guys, this is so fucking cool. So sorry.
But unlike previous enthusiastic characters like Harry Kim or Travis Mayweather, don't laugh, they are actual characters, I looked them up. She is not going to be stuck in a corner and told to be quiet. Tilly is often used for comic relief more than any other character, but she's also the character who's able to express what the viewers are thinking. That is, when they aren't thinking, what was all that about, Ethel? Tilly has mummy issues and wants to join the command training program.
Personality doesn't count. That's just something people with no personality say. Wait, which in no way means you absolutely have a personality.
Lieutenant Stamets is the chief engineer, Initially a bit of an uptight prick whose boyfriend is the ship's doctor, he manages to mellow after an encounter with his MacGuffin spore drive, but never loses his superpower, sarcasm.
My Uncle Everett plays in a Beatles cover band. It hardly makes him John Lennon.
Stamets eventually becomes a navigation interface between the ship and the spore drive, like a GPS with SAS. So Discovery is powered by something called a spore drive, which is some space magic shit that lets Discovery go anywhere in the universe, just like the infinite improbability drive in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
We will be able to materialize anywhere in the known universe. Behind enemy lines, above the Klingon homeworld, anywhere.
Which was something that was written as a parody of warp-type technology, except here they're deadly serious about it not being used as a crutch for storytelling. Spoilers! It's used as a crutch for storytelling. Commander Saru is the resident alien, well, for now, the only alien character in the main cast.
And you are someone to fear, Michael Burnham.
Saru is the sole member of his race, the Kelpians, to have left his home world of Kaminar. The Kelpians are a race bred to be hunted, so apparently that gives him the ability to sense danger, which means anytime he talks to Burnham, when his shoelaces are undone, eats leftovers that haven't been reheated properly, or watches Fox News.
And we particularly enjoy being discussed in the third person while present.
Doug Jones, forever buried under layers of creature makeup, is here, buried under layers of creature makeup, but he still manages to deliver an excellent performance. Over time, we learn a bit more about the Kelpians, mainly in a short trek, which we'll come back to later. Saru does manage to shed some of his genetic baggage by the end of Season 2 to make him a little less simpering and more forceful than he is when we first get to know him.
I am Commander Saru, the first and only Kelpie to join Starfleet, and I know the truth about Vaharai.
The last main character is Lieutenant Ash Tyler, who's not all that he seems. He's Ash Tyler, but he's also the Klingon Vogue, and there's a bit of a tug of war as to whether the buried Klingon spy or the artificially created human exterior is the real Ash Tyler.
Flashes of memory. Worse this time. Things I hadn't recalled about my torture.
Tyler becomes Discovery's security officer, which is ironic since he's actually a Klingon spy, but there are no tribbles around to raise the alarm.
Jim, this man is a Klingon.
In Season 1, he and Burnham are a thing, but after the revelation of his true self and his murder of Dr. Culper, Burnham can't forgive him. But apparently everybody else can without a second thought. There's a chief medical officer, Dr. Hugh Culper, but he's only a semi-regular character first season, just there for us to care enough when he's just murdered out of the blue, and his killer basically gets away with it scot-free.
Yes. That is Starfleet.
It's almost like the writers realise that on most Star Trek series, the Doctor is more often than not the least interesting character. But Hugh is later reproduced by the Spores and some prize space magic bullshit.
There isn't a test or a scan Dr. Pollard hasn't run on me. Well, you appear yourself. I don't feel like myself.
There are some regular faces on the bridge crew. The semi-robot crash test dummy lady Ariam, less semi-robot lady Kayla, and Owosekun, who's not a robot lady. Also this guy, and this guy, and this guy. No idea. That they all have less character than a block of wood with the word character written on it. Most viewers would be hard-pressed to name them without looking up Wikipedia, like I had to. Ariam at least does get an episode in Season 2 that fleshes out her backstory. Just when we kill her off. So the Klingons are reintroduced, and again are completely different to what we've known previously, despite the fact this show is meant to be in the same universe as other Trek shows. These Klingons are still warlike, but at times they seem unable to do anything for themselves. I gotta say, I really dislike the Klingons in Discovery. They improve only very slightly over time, L'Rell being the only interesting character of the lot, even though sometimes she looks like she's cosplaying as Scarface's sister. Just, I don't know, Discovery has really lousy Klingons. Maybe Star Trek always had them and they just needed somebody like Ron Moore to flesh them out, as he did in Next Gen and DS9. I don't know, but, Discovery makes you long for the return of Voyager's Kazon. And Philippa Georgiou comes back as an evil Mirror Universe counterpart of Burnham's mentor. A multi-episode arc revisits the Mirror Universe, first seen in Mirror Mirror, and then again in several episodes of Deep Space Nine and Enterprise. Georgiou is the evil Emperor, and, as it turns out, Discovery's Captain Lorca is originally her rival from that alternate universe. The season was going so well up until now. Just like that road trip you went on with friends that was going so well until the incident with the fish. The end of the season gets us back to our universe, but with evil Georgiou brought on by the Federation as a consultant. Yeah, this is an organisation with outstandingly poor judgment.
Yes. That is Starfleet.
Most episodes in previous Trek series were intended as a complete story, with only minor references to character and plot development. TV executives used to be scared casual viewers wouldn't jump into a show halfway in, or if they missed last week's episode, or if they were shown out of order. There weren't encore screenings, DVRs, season passes, or catch-up services. If you missed an episode, you were out of luck. But Discovery is a product of an era where there's no excuse for missing an episode, and if you do, it's available right there on your TV, whenever you want. It's actually more work for a viewer to skip an episode than to just carry on from when they last watched. You still have self-contained episodes that resolve part of the plot at the end of the episode, but they can always push forward the major plot as well. That's the theory, but that only works if the major plot makes sense. Now, do you want to bet how that works out on Discovery? Now, come on, care to make it interesting? One highlight is a new version of the classic series rogue, Harry Mudd, now played by The Office's Rainn Wilson. Mudd was first seen as a pimp and a rogue, and this new version is one of the more pleasing updates to existing canon. His appearances are welcome, to say the least, since, as well as the comedic side, this Mudd is also more than a little dangerous. And if Season 1 didn't have enough fan service for you, the season ends with Enterprise showing up. Season 2 would be about some being known as the Red Angel, who appears at critical events, who's either a portent of doom or a bringer of said doom, like a postal worker bringing you your credit card bill in January. There's a mystery to be solved before bad juju happens. But what's more important, Spock has gone missing, and as the Enterprise is being refitted, Captain Christopher Pike is assigned to be acting captain of the Discovery. Now, this is welcome, since it pushes Discovery to be a little more, I want to use the word respectful of canon, but that just sounds like a lunatic fanboy. Though these days, is there any other kind? Season 2 seems to be a little bit more confident in its storytelling, at least initially, but then does start to groan under its own weight by the end of the season. Like the time I bet someone I could walk barefoot on hot coals without burning my feet. It turns out I can't, but I learned from the experience, and when I'm able to walk again in 2 to 3 years, I'll try not to trip next time. Saru manages to free his people from that nagging feeling at the back of their necks every time somebody wants to split the lunch bill evenly. Tilly gains confidence even when she has an invisible friend. Tyler becomes first Laurel's consort, then joins Section 31, the Starfleet version of Men in Black. So named because Babylon 5 had already purloined the number 13 for their clandestine spy organization. Even Section 31's Starfleet badges are black, which means they're fingerprint magnets that are a son of a bitch to keep clean, especially when people can't stop touching them. We get Christopher Pike, long known as the original captain of the Starship Enterprise, and portrayed here by Anson Mount as a jokey adventurer led by his faith.
We'll try to have a little fun along the way too, huh?
A captain charming and approachable in a way Lorca wasn't. What's even better is the way the show ties in Pike's past and his eventual tragic fate. Spock has had a breakdown tied to the Red Angel appearances, in a really convoluted way. A big chunk of the early part of Season 2 is playing Where's Waldo with Spock, as Discovery embarks on a search for Spock, and when he eventually finds himself, proves a snarky counterpoint to his estranged sister Michael. The two bicker more than Larry and Curly during a pay dispute with Mo.
I performed what is colloquially referred to as a Vulcan nerve pinch, a disabling maneuver never known to inflict permanent harm.
Ethan Peck plays Disco Spock. Not as in disco dancing to the Bee Gees, but he's Spock in the show called Discovery, often abbreviated to Disco. Just like how Next Generation is often referred to Next Gen, or Star Trek Picard is often known as Jesus Christ, what is this? This Spock is cool and rational, somewhat charmingly smug, and he has a typical relationship with his sibling Michael. That is, they spend all day needling each other.
Seriously, what are you doing?
Disrupting your expectations.
I'm trying to help you, Spock.
I do not need your help, Michael.
Somehow, through something space magic, Dr. Hugh comes back from the dead. The Discovery gets another engineer who actually seems like an engineer, Jet Reno, one of Star Trek's best semi-regular characters in a long time. We see, briefly, a different take on Number 1, the Enterprise's original first officer. And of course, Starfleet's living embodiment of extremely poor judgment in almost every way, Admiral Cornwall, dies in the dumbest self-sacrifice since I tried to play chess against the reigning world chess champion computer, the Chess Bitch 5000. And at some point, the joy from seeing Michelle Yeoh on screen is tempered by the fact we are forever stuck with the Mirror Universe version of Georgiou.
You're the Terran Emperor.
Don't do that.
And that she'll be heading up a spin-off series based on Section 31, possibly the least interesting thing ever to come out of the Star Trek universe ever. By the end of the season, Spock is his old self, and the Enterprise can go about its missions as we remember them. But Discovery, after many long and teary and flowery speeches, is trapped in the future. which is where Season 3 will pick up the story. Season 2, despite being one episode shorter, also has short treks, which are 10 to 15 minute episodes focusing on somebody's backstory. Some are more disposable than others, but ignoring them means the Season 2 finale is even more confusing. And even if you watch them, the finale is still confusing. So, Season 2 builds up to a crescendo and falls into the trap of, we don't really know how to wrap up the story, so let's just put everything on the screen. Suddenly, Discovery and Enterprise are going into battle against an AI that will destroy us all in the future. And, well, it's complicated, like a love triangle between a circle, a square, and a parallelogram who's married to a trapezium. The final 2 episodes have the 2 crews working together to prep for the final battle. And, well, again, it's complicated. It's a race against time, we're told. But this is modern television, so the action has to stop about half a dozen times for people to make grandstanding and inspirational speeches. And of course, everybody else has to stop to pay attention, despite the fact the clock is ticking, which makes this montage of all the main characters berating extras for wasting time even more hypocritical. The speeches are there to amp up the emotional aspect of the show. These are the most emotional Starfleet crew members ever. People cry a lot. There are more tears in Star Trek Discovery than at a kid's birthday party where the birthday girl's parents are strict vegan. In other cheap shots, am I alone in wanting to see more of this version of Pike, Spock, and Number 1? Well, apparently not. Anyway, you could compare the 14,000 inspirational speeches from Disco's first 2 seasons to some of the great ones of Trek. Like, I don't know, this one.
Risk is our business.
Or this one.
Let's make sure that history never forgets the name. Enterprise.
Or this one.
Brain and brain, what is brain?
And you know, nothing really compares to Picard, but he keeps his speeches fairly short and to the point. In Discovery, the speeches have a habit of going on and on and on, like a methed out Energizer bunny. The writers love language. I mean, that's a prerequisite for becoming a writer, isn't it? But the writers here treat every officer's personal log like a poetry slam event. Michael Burnham doesn't just describe her day and document her feelings. She fills her logs with folk stories, fables, and metaphors.
The tale of a girl who dug her hands in the wood ash and threw it into the sky to create the Milky Way.
It's almost as if she knows she's going to face Starfleet disciplinary action at some point, and so she obfuscates her logs in order to throw off any investigations. Plot? Well, the plots are plots. They're perfunctory, but they're really clever. They do the job, but with no style. It's almost a case of the flashier the visuals, the more likely the actual plot has fallen apart faster than a smartphone with a folding screen. Why does the writing feel so underwhelming in some ways? I mean, the dialogue is almost always excellent, to go with top-class acting.
I mean, you literally entered my brain as a spore.
But something's missing from the show, a spark of cleverness to the storylines, or logic even.
If you're telling me that this ship can skip across the universe on a highway made of mushrooms, I kind of have to go in faith.
The plots have a thrown together feeling, just like a salad cobbled together from whatever was in your fridge. They sort of work, providing you ignore the mold. Some of the cliffhangers have been good. But in general, it's rarely a surprising show. You're not often marveling at the ingenuity of the twists. So, plot's ordinary, dialogue good. In general, Discovery is more consistent than its stablemate Picard, a show with a huge variation in writing quality, which modulates between wow and ooh in the blink of a scene change.
Brain and brain, what is brain?
Let's just say when Star Trek has extensive behind-the-scenes drama, particularly in the writer's room, the show suffers. This was the case on the final season of the original series, and the first 2 seasons of The Next Generation. And alas, it appears this was the case with Discovery. The show has a habit of going in one direction before a behind-the-scenes change pivots the show in another direction, with all the consistency of extreme diarrhea. Characters making bad choices in service of a plot is not unique to Star Trek Discovery, but it's certainly a hallmark of this show. For their decision-making process, Starfleet in this series seems to be using a magic 8-ball possessed by the 12th century demon Hazabak.
Yes, that is Starfleet.
Starfleet promotes psychopaths with the inevitability of a Bond film.
Yes.
Star Trek Discovery looks absolutely amazing.
Yes.
I mean, there's been a lot of money spent on the set design and the visuals. It's an expensive looking show, and it probably needs to be, since it's a show that leans on the flashy visuals when the plot gets into trouble. So there are lots of flashy visuals, because the plot gets into trouble more often than a rabbit with loose morals.
Yes, that is who we are.
The ship interior, while it doesn't really share a lot of common design language with other Star Trek series, is still a pretty cool place. Every room though is massive. They're really big and cavernous. Discovery makes Enterprise D look like a shoebox in comparison. There's no real problem with that, but it does make it a little hard to hear the dialogue since the cast have to wait for the echoes to subside before they say their lines.
I thought you were on a prison shuttle.
I'm still here. Hope you don't mind.
Jeff Russo provides the music for Discovery. He's everywhere now, and rightfully so since his work has its own unique voice, and it's also really good. I could live without the clumsy shoehorning of some elements of the original theme in here and there, but we do get an amazing cover version of the original series theme at the end of Season 1. Is Star Trek Discovery successful? That's a hard question. I think it's good, and maybe it's good enough, but it's yet to be brilliant. I can't think of too many standout episodes or too many outright terrible ones, which may just be because the overarching storylines tend to merge my memories into one amorphous blob, like Odo with a hangover. On a business level though, Discovery must be doing respectable numbers for CBS All Access, since not only has Discovery run for, at last count, 3 seasons, but also spawned various spin-offs at different stages of development. There's already Star Trek Picard, and you could argue its sensibilities are closer to that of Discovery than of Next Generation. There's the spin-off featuring Michelle Yeoh in Section 31, and now a spin-off with Pike and young Spock on the Enterprise, and also the animated series Lower Decks. Not all of these shows are set at the same time, but they were greenlit as a result of Discovery, proving that there was still a hunger for Trek. And unlike the days when Paramount was churning out 50+ episodes of Trek a year for much of the 90s, these shows have fewer episodes per season, which should mean better episodes.
Yes.
Discovery, like a lot of current live-action sci-fi series, is filmed in Canada, in Toronto, unlike previous Trek series which were all made in Los Angeles, where Picard is still filmed, presumably because Sir Patrick Stewart is a Knight of the Realm and has the clout to stay where it's goddamn warm. At the point of making this video, Season 3 had been delayed due to some trifling issues from early 2020 that even a research group of Doctors McCoy, Crusher, Bashir, Joe and Phlox could not solve in 44 minutes. When we return, there's that trifling matter of Discovery being hurled 900 years into the future, which sounds bad, until Tilly realised she left $10 in her savings account when she left, and now it's worth trillions. Drinks are on Tilly. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.